Mm. And it's fascinating. So, I mean, it does sound like the nature of the business that you are in really does impact the scope of service and the way you do it. I think Sumit, I really like when you talked about brilliant basics is your right of entry. And then you talked about value creation as being like you have to have that value creation mindset as you go through this. And in your discussion there, Sumit, you talked about push and pull. You talked about the pull from the organization. Now, this concept of having a GBS that pulls demand from the organization has come up on all the calls that we've done. I think it's central to the GBS construct actually to get to the point where the business wants you and is asking you for things. Um, why is that important from a service management perspective, Robert? Why does that matter in what we're talking about here?
It is the difference between push and pull models is really one of the critical sort of evolution differentiators within the GBS, where more traditional, more sort of basic GBS teams um, come from a perspective where they're mandated by the CFO, mandated by the CEO onto the company, where the CFO or the CEO says, "Look, we're going to create a GBS, and they're going to do all of your finance back office for you, or they're going to do all of the HR back office for you, and as a business unit, you just have to accept this." So it's sort of pushed from the top down as this is what is being mandated to you. Um, Quite a few GBSs start like that, and it's fine. It's a good way to start. I mean, in my first GBS, we also started with a mandate push model. Um, but as you evolve, you do want to move into the pool environment where, as you say, your services and your solutions are actually being pulled by the business because they're helpful, because they're useful, because they're giving the business a competitive advantage in the market. Um, and 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 that is what you typically see in the more mature, the more um, the more complete GBS teams. And the difference is stark between the two. If you think of, for example, how you manage cost in a push model, cost is typically seen as a big cost center that is then allocated to the business. Whereas in a pull model, you're basically running as Sumit already mentioned earlier about service management, well, you're running your GBS as a business. And you're not just a cost center, you actually have a P&L and a balance sheet, which means through your balance sheet, you're able to invest. Through your P&L, you're able to recover your costs and maybe make a certain agreed profit in your unit as well. And you're positioning yourself as an internal option versus
Hmm.
external suppliers. And that is something that I've done many times myself in the GBS teams that I've run, where I actually said, look, I can offer you these services and solutions, but Mr. or Mrs. Business, you're also free to choose an external vendor to use the same solutions. And if you find that's better, then please go there. And of course, the job for myself and my team was make sure that whatever I was offering was better and at a lower cost, right? And I think we typically did that pretty well. Um, and that, of course, gives you then a lot more flexibility from a P&L and balance sheet point of view. So the whole cost management is very different when it comes to push versus pull. The same as it is on business partnering,
Mm.
where the way you business partner in a push environment is explaining your SLAs, explaining that actually everything is green and everything's fine. Whereas on a pull model, you're really uh, uh, co-creating solutions. You're really a part of the business,
Mm.
um, and you're not a supplier too, but you're
Mm.
a true business partner. So the whole mindset, the whole approach, also is quite different in that setup. And the same goes to how you deal with feedback. The same goes to how you deal with innovation. Very different approach in a push or a pull. And obviously, my encouragement would be for any GBS team watching, try to get yourself into that pool environment as quickly as you can. Start small, learn from that, build on that. But being in an environment where actually the business is putting your services,
Mm.
that's where you want to be.
Very good. Sumit, you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, only thing I was going to add was sometimes what we forget when we are building GBS and service management framework is it's content and context. A lot of people focus on the content, and they hire expertise around finance or AI or whatever it might be. But what is important though is to understand the business context. How does, especially when you have people sitting thousands of miles away and they haven't seen the business firsthand, how do you create that business context? How do you make sure people have programs that they understand, they go, they travel, and they've done number of jobs before they take on service management role. So our head of service management has been with us for almost 18, 19 years, and worked in our offices in Turkey and other parts of the world, and gained a lot of knowledge of the business, and that's really important to gain that knowledge. Once you gain that knowledge, you have the business context, and then when you have a seat on the table, you can have those effective conversations. Otherwise, how do you convert from a push to pull? Because if you are not relevant, then you don't have the right to have any further conversation. So to
Mm,
me, it's about once you get the seat on the table, deciding what you do. Yes, your CFO or CEO has given you the push and the mandate to start with, but you can't live on the mandate because it creates a little bit of rivalry or
mm,
animosity because I've been pushed to do this. But then how do you win hearts and minds through building relationships, and what do you do once you get a seat on the table is really important, so that you can have those relevant conversation. How do you share the long-term plan and understand that long-term plan and say, okay, our contribution to your long-term plan will be this, so that they are very clear what are the dependent um, on you for, and then you keep telling them that this is what you've delivered on their long-term plan. So it makes it real, because sometimes we talk about value and dilute ourselves on cost avoidance. Or if you would have built this in US, the cost would have been this, and if you build it in India, it'll be Y. To me, that's nonsensical
mm.
conversation. It should be around real money, real cash that you can see in the P&L, which delivers shareholder value.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I'm going I have a couple of questions left, but I'm very conscious that we've got quite a lot of people online watching in. And I'd really like you all to think of if there's a question you'd like to ask Sumit and Robert, please put it in the meeting chat because we'd love to answer one or two of your questions. So do think about what you've got to ask before we close, and I'll try and come to them in a few minutes' time. So just put something in if you have something that's burning a hole in your pocket, and we'll see if we can answer it.